All right, welcome to Raptors Weekly for the week of March the 14th. The Ides of March is what these are called. The Ides of March. And these Ides have seen the Raptors go 3-0 the last week, coming off two impressive wins against the Miami Heat and the Atlanta Hawks, and a bit of a scare against the New Jersey Nets, or the Brooklyn Nets, I should call them. And joining me to talk about those three games and a lot more, and also take some Twitter questions later on, are Jason Bourne of Raptors Republic, Sean Baskern.
Interesting comparison.
Yeah. And also William Liu returns to his old hunting grounds, coming back to the Raptors Weekly podcast. What brings you to these corners of the Republic, Will?
Well, if we're going to go a little inside baseball here, I've had technical issues for like the last month of trying to get on this podcast. I'm finally on the podcast. This is a product of sheer determination.
Right. So
Yes.
Will, if you had to compare yourself to one... your contributions to Raptors Republic, compared them to one Raptor teammate, like a Raptor player, who would it be? Who would you most liken yourself to?
Patrick Patterson.
Ooh,
you know,
explain that a little bit.
I'm quietly behind the scenes. No one notices me. I don't do anything flashy like Wright, but I'll show up on podcasts and help the psyche of Blake Murphy. Text Blake a lot. That's my role as Patrick Patterson, role player now. Yeah.
All right, that's good stuff, man. So it's been a nice week, man. Before we get to any Raptor talk, I have been reading a book, and I just got done with it like 5 minutes before the podcast was over. It's by Jason Williams of the New Jersey Nets, way back when old Raptor fans might remember him. He led the league in rebounding, I think, a couple of years. Was a rival with Dennis Rodman for a while, and he had a book out years ago called Loose Balls, and I finally got around to it. And I was hoping to see at least one mention of the Raptors somewhere, get some insight on maybe a tidbit or something related to the Raptors. And there was nothing except one minor mention of the Raptors. And it goes like this. Back when Marcus Camby was in his rookie year with the Raptors, John Calipari was the head coach of the Nets. And apparently, if you remember, Camby one day collapsed before a game. He had like a neck spasm. And he collapsed, and the rumor went on around the NBA that he might be hurt and whatnot. And Calipari was his head coach at UMass, but the Nets really didn't care. So while during the flight one day, Calipari comes into the passenger area where the players are and goes, guys, everything's okay. Marcus is going to be okay. And then he walked out of the room, and all the players looked at each other and were like, who gives a shit about Marcus Camby? And I was like, that's pretty harsh. That's pretty harsh. That was the only mention of a Raptor in this entire book. Loose Balls by Jason Williams. And there you go, man. That's my intro to the podcast.
What would you give it out of 5 stars?
Yeah, I would give it like in terms of anecdotes and whatnot that he might drop here, I'd say it's a 3 out of 5. There are better books out there.
Okay.
3 out of 5, but you get some insights. So one of the insights that I got was related to the Chicago Bulls, where apparently Jordan and Pippen used to yell instructions at Toni Kukoc, and he didn't want to follow them, so he pretended not to understand English.
All right.
That was an interesting one, and there's also a bunch of anecdotes about the Armin Gilliam, the Hammer, who he was good friends with. So read it, man. If you got, it's about a 4 to 5 hour read at the most, but check it out. It's not bad. I went to the public library and got it, so there you go.
In case our listeners are wondering, you can get copies on Amazon for 1 cent, apparently.
1 cent. Wow.
Easy money,
right.
hard fouls, cheap laughs, and true love in the NBA.
Yes.
Loose Balls.
Yeah, that's the one.
Ladies and gentlemen, 1 cent on eBay. Or Amazon, excuse me.
Or free at your local library. All right. Let's get to some Raptor talk, man. Let's start off with a I want to say giant win against Miami, because they have been surging. They had won I think 4 of 6 games, and they beat Chicago the night before, which I guess doesn't mean a lot because everybody's beating Chicago. And they rested Wade, and the Raptors went at them. Joe Johnson came out firing. DeMar DeRozan came out firing. Lowry struggled the entire game. But the Raptors, thanks to DeMar DeRozan's perseverance, mostly pulled this one off. On the statement-o-meter, where does this rank as a statement?
Yeah, for the Raptors or for DeRozan?
I don't know, both.
Both? Okay, well, I mean, for the Raptors, I guess if you just look at it coming into the game, the Heat were on the second half of back-to-back. They were pretty short-handed. They only played with an 8-man rotation and went to overtime, so In terms of statement games, if the Raptors had smacked them, it's a different story. But I think the Heat were a little bit lucky to get into overtime in the first place. But regardless, for DeRozan, man, that was, one of his most impressive performances, just especially down the stretch. The steady hand to, just be able to command the offense whenever, to be able to score on Joe Johnson sort of in a myriad of ways, to consistently go to the free throw line. He got hacked. So playing overtime where like Hassan Whiteside, he got fouled first by Joe Johnson on the drive, got past Joe Johnson. Hassan Whiteside's there, like just bumps him to the ground. He's like slow to get up and just, powers through it. He hits all those clutch free throws down the stretch. If he doesn't hit those 2 free throws, then that Luol Deng 3-pointer basically would have won the game in regulation. But instead, DeRozan, man, 38 points, 10 rebounds, 7 assists, like 13 of 26 shooting, like 15 free throws. Yeah, that's a killer game by DeRozan right there. And
yeah,
so
like for me, man, it was that like he had 15 free throws, but it's not like he relied on his free throws first to score. It was his jumper, he was 13 of 26 in this game, and he hit some big jumpers in that late fourth quarter. I think 3 of them he hit over Joe Johnson and stepped back a little bit, hit him from like between the 16 to 19 foot range. Those are the shots that kind of just sink the other team emotionally when those go down. So it wasn't just the free throws; it was his actual shot making.
Yeah, like he was on fire from the field, and in the overtime too. Like he was like very very clutch for the Raptors in 43 minutes, 38 points, 10 rebounds, almost a triple double too. Like this was Russell Westbrook like numbers, just unbelievable. I think the biggest thing in this game though was the fact that we could contain quote unquote Joe Johnson, and like you said, exercise some of those old demons because of how much he torched us in the 2014 playoff series. But, I like the way that we just took him out of it early. And it was tough, but the way they came back and then the resiliency they showed in the overtime was pretty impressive. And the biggest thing is now we beat, Miami 3-1. I can't remember the last time we beat Miami 3-1 in a season series with all those LeBron years. So it's a good win for sure.
And the defense that DeRozan saw was quite diverse because he just didn't have one guy on him. I think he had Deng on him at one point. He had Winslow on him. He obviously had Joe Johnson on him. It wasn't the same look that you usually get.
Yeah, and these are good defenders.
Really well, and they're all good. And the entire Heat roster is full of like good defenders. Just up and down the roster. Even Gerald Green is able to play some good defense. So it's not that he got his against a weak team. It was a back-to-back, but it was against legit opposition. And to me, like it showed the maturity of DeMar DeRozan. And again, the 7 assists just kind of add glitter to it.
Yeah, it's huge because look, it's not like a lot of Raptors had it on against the Heat. Like Lowry had a off night, and it was mostly centered around. Look, we know DeRozan's going to shoot, and the Heat often send 3 or 4 defenders his way. And, sometimes he would try to drive into that and get into trouble and basically settle for those sort of post fadeaways, which, to his credit, were falling. But there's a couple other times where he had the composure to know that, okay, look, I'm going to draw the defense, especially when I drive and get past Joe Johnson, which he was able to do consistently. And there was a couple nice finds. I remember, like, down the stretch, there was one where he drew 3 defenders and then dumped it off to JV, who happened to be cutting to the hoop just at the perfect time, because Hassan Whiteside was usually the one that usually had to come out and help Miami's wings when DeRozan drove. That's just a nice play, and that's how you end up with 7 assists.
Yeah, and it's almost like nothing he does, like even his offensive game entirely, there's nothing flashy about it. Like you almost know exactly what he's going to do before he even does it, yet you're not able to stop it. His offense comes the same way, like when he catches the ball in that mid-post area, you know exactly what he's doing, yet he gets the foul, yet he makes a jumper. Even his passing, you can see himself pull back from the defense, set up his drive, and he's eyeing JV, who's cutting from the other side. It's happening in slow motion for him, yet the defense is not able to stop it. And it's almost like I tell myself, man, hopefully this continues in the playoffs.
Yeah, like I think it's really amazing to see him come to this level and kind of watch him blossom. Even since last year, like I think he was always a good player, and I think last year and the year before he was good but not great. And I think he's elevated at least the scoring aspect of his game, and to some extent his rebounding and passing to sort of that great territory, which is just unbelievable to see. And it's kind of nice for the Raptors because when Lowry struggles, DeRozan seems to step up, and when DeRozan struggles, Lowry seems to step up. Like we saw the game against Cleveland a couple weeks ago. DeRozan was out of it from the beginning, and Lowry sort of carried the Raptors to victory. So it's just nice to see that when one guy's off, the other guy can always step in.
Yeah, and like, a couple of the guys who had some very, very notable games were James Johnson and Jonas Valanciunas. Let's talk about JV first, Will. It's his, like his stat line at the end of the day says 7 for 11 for 20 points, big stat line. But during the game, it was his defensive rebounding position against Hassan Whiteside, how he restricted basically Hassan Whiteside to like 11 rebounds, which caught my eye more than the offense.
Yeah, and obviously 11 rebounds is like a monumental figure for any player, but Hassan Whiteside is just that dominant, especially in the paint. I thought Jonas, he did a really good job just contesting the shots. I thought DeRozan, I thought his defense against Joe Johnson wasn't the greatest, especially since Joe Johnson still ended up with 28 points. Yeah, Joe Johnson would get by DeRozan, and again, JV's the guy that's supposed to be there to contest those shots, and I thought JV did a pretty good job of that. And if JV's going to be the one that has to come out and help contest those shots, then other people are going to have to help JV with the rebounds. And I thought that JV on his own grabbed some pretty key rebounds, especially down the stretch, but you got like DeRozan getting 10 defensive rebounds, you got Lowry getting 6, so that really helped.
You got Scola getting 0. But by the way, just
quick. Of course, Scola got 0.
Quick detour here. I'm glad you mentioned that DeRozan's defense was quite poor on Joe Johnson. In overtime, it was pretty good. And he also had that pretty shaky turnover, which almost cost us the game. And that's why I gave him an A and not an A+ in the quick reaction. And I read the comments, and I just see people shitting on me. And I was telling Sham, like offline before the pod, I was like, I don't want to do those things anymore, man. I just can't win.
Oh, even you've reached this point? Look, no one can win with the quick reaction. Nobody. I hear this from Blake too. Like, seriously, guys. If you are one of those commenters with quick reaction, just realize that we have to write this in like 10 minutes, and the grade takes into account a lot of things. And it's at the end of the day, it's very subjective. So if your favorite player got criticism that you thought was unfair, just roll with it. Just roll with it, yeah. All right? Especially after wins. There's nothing to be angry about.
Yeah.
After wins, this is a great win.
Yeah. All right, so you talked about JV. I echoed the same feelings. Sham, you go off and give James Johnson a little rubber tug.
Yeah, James Johnson played a good game, and with respect to JV, like, I think, just to quickly touch on it, I think Hassan Whiteside still had a footprint on the game. It's not like he was completely contained in 33 minutes, but I think JV definitely limited Hassan Whiteside's impact on the game, which in the past has basically been, the reason we lose these games. And yeah, like James Johnson played, I think the good thing with James Johnson, or what I saw that was different in some of the other games, is he consistently attacked the basket. And, 5 for 7 from the field, 10 points. There was not a single shot that he took that I kind of went, oh man, there's another, stupid James Johnson decision. And I think that was nice and refreshing to see. So it's not like he played a lot, but in the minutes that he did play, in 21 minutes, he definitely shot efficiently anyway, which is all you can really ask from James Johnson, right? Because I think defensively, you always know the effort's going to be there. I think offensively, it's always just been his decision making that's always been questionable, right?
Yeah, he seems to be able to drive by whoever he wants to, whenever he wants to. Like there was this one play where Luol Deng was checking up top, and Deng was like giving him, like he abused 6 feet of space, and he still just managed to blow by him.
Yeah.
No. Any thoughts on anybody else? There's Corey Joseph going 1 for 7, struggled, but defensively had a decent game. Another guy who I got shit on for in the quick reaction. And Terrence Ross, I just want to say that keep doing what you're doing, man. I like his overall approach to the game so far. I mentioned this over the last podcast. I think he's doing the right thing. Sometimes the shots aren't falling, but he's getting into areas on the court that he didn't even venture last year. Like if you draw a heat map for Terrence Ross, you'll see red in areas today where we're just like they were just completely empty the last 2 seasons.
Yeah, like his confidence is back. That's like for sure, and you're starting to see it, like you said, in places you haven't seen in the past. So it's not just catch and shoot threes; it's off the dribble. It's 15 feet out. It's driving to the basket. We saw that impressive dunk against I think it was Atlanta when he just drove to the basket and kind of
baseline.
You just didn't see stuff like that from Terrence Ross even last season, and I think it's nice to see.
Yeah. All right, so let's rewind to the Hawks game. Will, is any part of you scared of the Hawks?
I mean, I respect the Hawks.
Because you were, way back, you were like, oh man, I don't want to face Paul Millsap and Al Horford against Luis Scola because they might destroy us. Are you still of the same view?
I still am of the same view.
I can't believe you.
But
explain yourself.
But I think the Hawks game. I took a lot of positives away from the Hawks game, because the Hawks do have a surplus, a huge surplus of advantage in the front court. You got two All-Stars in Paul Millsap, Al Horford. Both can stretch out to the 3-point line. Both mobile. Both defensively solid. And then the Raptors, our front line, it's sort of a more cobbled collection of we got to manage the right pieces. But the Raptors front line wasn't at such a big disadvantage because the one weakness that the Hawks front line has is just that they can't defensively secure rebounds. And so my biggest takeaway from this game was that you got Luis Scola and Jonas Valanciunas, first of all, both finishing with double-doubles, and second of all, combining for 7 offensive rebounds. And I thought that took away a lot of the advantage away from the Hawks just by securing more possessions. And at the end of the game, the Raptors out-rebounded them 48-33. So, I think that's the huge part. If their Atlanta's front court isn't going to dominate the Raptors, if the Raptors can somehow get some of that back through some Scola sneaky offensive putbacks.
My view is that it's not a major mystery what that somehow really is. It's not like we have chumps in our front court. Bianco's a good defensive player. JV,
yes.
you saw the last 2 games. He can be a good
defensive
player. He's been strong. You got Patrick Patterson, who's a mobile defender and who can stick with Millsap on the wing when he's driving. Then you also got Jason Thompson, who's not horrible and is also apparently a 3-point shooter. So we can leave Scola aside. Forget about that guy. I mean, he's not going to play in the playoffs much. But we got 4 guys who are able.
They're not bad. The Raptors front court isn't bad, but it's just that the Hawks have 2 top tier front court guys in Horford and Millsap. But I mean, this is what I said. I mean, I just mean that I'm actually quite encouraged by how the Raptors front court played. I thought the matchup isn't as much of a mismatch as I thought it would be.
So if the Raps and Hawks faced off in the playoffs today, who would you pick in how many games?
The Raptors. I think I picked them in 6.
6. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Sham, go for it, man.
I take them in even 5 or 6. I think they don't scare me for 2 reasons. Number one, the front court, as you guys mentioned, isn't that bad compared to theirs. I mean, obviously they've got 2 bona fide all-stars or capable all-stars in Millsap and Horford, but I think we cancel some of that out, with Valanciunas and Scola. I think obviously they've played well in the meetings we've played the Hawks this season. And I think but for me, the second reason and the biggest reason is the backcourt. I think our backcourt is so much better than their backcourt that it almost doesn't matter. Lowry and DeRozan have consistently been the reason we have won or lost games, this season. So I think if they play their game, there's no reason why we have to lose against the Hawks. And I think if they were to put their footprint in the playoffs after having 2, first round disappointments, I think going through that will help them. And I think if they were to play the Hawks, they would probably destroy them mostly because of the play in the backcourt.
And my main thing is the Hawks do not have one elite or above average perimeter defender that can check DeMar DeRozan and completely take him out. I mean, last year they had one. This year they just don't. I mean, you can't.
Well, it's also because DeRozan is so much better than last year. So Bazemore last year would have shut down DeRozan in their meetings, and this year I don't think it's even close. DeRozan has developed, basically a supreme level of getting, to the free throw line as well as a very consistent mid-range jumper. So he just can't be stopped. And I don't think, like you said, I don't think there's a guy on the team that could really consistently stop him in a 7-game series. So yeah, that's why.
Yeah, I think for the Hawks, the best guy to throw out DeRozan is probably Thabo Sefolosha. But if you put the Sefolosha on the court, there are some things you're giving up, like offense. He's at best like a standstill 3-point shooter guy, and his defense against DeRozan hasn't been great. I mean, Sefolosha's a good defender, but DeRozan's stronger than him. DeRozan's able to dictate where he's going to go in those situations, and I don't know, man. DeRozan in this game, 30 points.
Yeah, and same theme here with JV as well. Strong showing on the glass against as what Will called an elite front court.
They're an elite front court, yeah.
JV here was another double-double. I think he's got how many double-doubles he has? In
around
a row now?
17 or so.
That's pretty impressive.
Considering he's missed 20 games.
Yeah. Will, you doubting that stat?
No, I'm just stat checking. No, but Yeah, no, Jonas has played well. I thought the weird thing for me with the Hawks was just like their offense, they just couldn't get it going. Like Paul Millsap was like 2 of 8, which I think is huge credit again to Patrick Patterson right there, because you just don't notice that stuff. Like he plays good defense, you know he's a good defender, and then at the end of the day, you look at the sheet, you're like, how did Paul Millsap go 2 away from the field? Because Patterson's a good defender. It's just the Hawks. Their 2 best offensive players I felt like were Tim Hardaway Jr. and Dennis Schroeder that night, which is the weirdest thing. Dennis Schroeder is like so fast. It's stupid how fast he is. He comes out with those screens.
Would you trade Dennis Schroeder for Corey Joseph? Would you do that?
I don't know. I like Corey Joseph's ability to play without the ball.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't do that. I love Schroeder, but I wouldn't do that. Just because I think Joseph's a better defender too.
Yeah, I think so too. Schroeder is like he's faster, but he's kind of slight and he gambles a little bit with his arms. But yeah, I mean that's how afraid are you really going to be of a team if their best bench scorer is like Dennis Schroeder or like Tim Hardaway Jr. Like Jeff Teague, his game has fallen off. Kyle Korver, his game has fallen off. Like the Hawks' whole entire offense has really fallen apart. Yeah. I mean, I'm very confident the Raptors could beat the Hawks in the playoffs.
And you can almost visibly see the frustration on their head coach's face, like when their plays aren't going the way they're designed. I think last year they were clicking, and this year it's just some of those sets they just die in the middle of the passing sequence. Like I've noticed that a lot.
Yeah, they've lost that sort of. We mentioned it a couple of pods ago. Like they've lost that sort of zing in the way they play. Last year we saw that at the second half of the season. They were pretty much unstoppable in terms of their offensive execution. Sort of that Spurs model of finding the open guy, making the right pass at the right time. A lot of movement in the way they operate their offense, and things have just been stagnant. No one's been shooting well too, right? Like Korver's had a pretty off year shooting wise, and that dictates a lot of their possessions. Like
my theory with the Hawks is that since Horford is taking more threes and he's kind of going to the 3-point line a bit more, it's almost had a negative overall impact on their offense because it's not what it was last year. He's in a totally different position this year compared to where he was last year. And I think that has taken some time to adjust to. Ponder that, Will.
It's interesting. It's an interesting theory. I mean, look, it's not going to be a problem next year for the Hawks because they won't have Al Horford. He'll be on the Raptors. Mm-hmm. I'm kidding. He won't be on the Raptors next year.
Hey guys,
he'll be back with the Hawks.
It's time for another anecdote from Jason Williams' book, Loose Balls. It's
wow. Are you the agent? No. Are you the book agent?
No. It's whatever. It's just here it is. It's a book in front of me. So here it is. It's called. There was this time where he got to the free throw line, and he was a poor free throw shooter, and he completely airballed a free throw. He hit it. It was so bad that he almost hit the NBA logo on the bottom left corner of the backboard. And whatever, game over. He went home, and he gets a call the next morning from Rod Thorne, who's the punishment guy from the NBA at the time. And Rod Thorne goes to him, "Don't ever do that again. It makes us look like we're shaving points."
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Stay tuned to the podcast for more anecdotes from Jason Williams' book, Loose Balls.
And make sure to buy it online for 1 cent.
All right. Okay, so I guess we should talk about the Nets game too, because I actually skipped this game. I was like, whatever. It's the Nets.
It's the Nets.
It's nothing. So it's like whatever. It's like 8:30, and I get a text from my mom saying, "Are you watching the game?" I'm like, "Nah, it's the Nets." She goes, "They're down 16." I'm like, "You're lying." Sure enough, they're down 16. What happened in that first half, Sham?
I don't know, man. We just ran into a Nets team that was hot. I mean, Bogdanović was shooting well. Thaddeus Young was shooting well. Brook Lopez was just owning us inside. He was having sort of, he's done this in the past. Him, DeMarcus Cousins, Dwight Howard. We struggle against some of these physically imposing big men down low, and I think the Raptors realized just how strong Brook Lopez was. Just abused us in that first half. Even guys like Wayne Ellington going 3 for 7. Like, you didn't really expect guys to shoot that well, and the Raptors were just sort of a deer in the headlights in the first half. They were like, whoa. And the Nets were ready to play. And we've seen this from the past with this team. Like, we tend to play down to our competition or play up. And, this is just one of those typical Raptor games where we just let them hang around and get confidence, and then shooters start hitting threes. We get down in the game. This was similar to, the Phoenix game we played earlier this year when Teletovic was just killing us from deep. That's what this game felt like, where, people weren't closing out in that first quarter, and the Nets got confident. And they just put their foot down in the second quarter. I think they outscored us like by 21 in the second quarter. So once they got that confidence, there was no looking back going into halftime.
Will, can you tell me what is it about Brook Lopez other than his size, talent, and skill that bugs JV so much?
Well, I mean, on paper, you know what? Hold on. It's too much to expect JV to guard someone who can stretch it out the 3-point line and is insanely quick. I mean, that describes, that describes Lopez to a T. I mean, that's how that's how Valanciunas defended him to end the second half, the first half. Sorry, man, I'm just all over the place. Yeah, I was at this game. I remember being so angry at him, and I think I'm still angry at him just recalling this play. But basically, the ball got swung to Brook Lopez to end the second quarter. And he was standing at the 3-point line, and Jonas was like, "Oh my God, I gotta close out on him!" Like leaps at this guy. Brook Lopez is super slow, but he's still faster than JV when JV leaves his feet. Gets the basket. I mean, Patrick Patterson saves JV as he always does, stops him in the post. But all JV needs to do is just seal him off, just double him right there. Instead, JV turns his back to the play, and it's trying to guard like Markel Brown or somebody, and Brook Lopez is much bigger than Patrick Patterson, just reaches around him and scores. And I was so pissed. And I think so was Dwayne Casey. But, with Brook Lopez, he's just so big and he's so crafty, and there's just nights where he's just going to be this unstoppable. You can make shots difficult for him. He's good at making bad shots. He's like a giant version of Antoine Jameson with his scoop layups around the hoop. And except he's much more accurate, and man, when he really, really wants to get to a spot, he gets it. And I thought he torched Bismack Biyombo as well too. But Biyombo was a little bit more understandable because Biyombo's got such a small lower body as compared to his upper body. He can't hold his position as well, so he kept fouling him, putting his arms on him and stuff. But yeah, I don't know, man. The Nets are super sad. So whatever Brook Lopez ended up doing, it just was all for naught.
All right, Will, I hope you feel better after that one.
Yeah, sorry. There's probably needs a lot of edit for that one. I made a lot of errors in describing that play.
Today.
One take.
Okay, so I guess I had made some notes here talking about improving our improved defense. You guys notice anything different we're doing? Because apparently last time I checked, we had the worst defense post All-Star break across the NBA. I don't know what that looks like today, but any differences you guys have noticed? Either one of you want to jump in and take this one?
I think it's just 3-point defense. Ultimately, closing out on defenders is what killed us against Houston. It's what killed us against Portland, I guess, because we almost lost that game, and some of the earlier losses as well. And you saw that against Miami, Atlanta. We've held both of those teams, that, especially Atlanta, a team that can hit a lot of threes, to 30% from beyond the arc. So that was huge. And I think also JV playing strong inside and getting, limiting guys like Hassan Whiteside and Al Horford. I think that really helped us sort of get the rebounding advantage in those games and sort of help the defense that way as well, right? And those are two areas that we struggled with initially post All-Star break when our defense was crap.
Yeah. All right, so I think it's time to take a break, man. But before we take a break, it's time for another anecdote from the book. So this one is about Jason Williams driving in L.A. with Benoit Benjamin, who I don't know if you guys recall was a pretty decent scorer in the NBA a while back.
Benoit,
is that Benoit or was it Benoit? Wasn't it?
It was a subject of debate, but Benoit I think is the.
Yeah, I think he preferred Benoit. All right. Well, so they're both driving in L.A. and Benoit. Now you're gonna confuse me, man. So he's driving. He's trying to show him the town, and he's trying to impress Jason and trying to show him how he everybody knows his name in the city and all that. So they get in his 80,000.
Everyone knows this is Benoit or Benoit.
So they're driving, and he blows by a stop sign, and sure enough, a cop comes over and pulls him over, and he's and he goes to Jason. He goes, "Watch this." So the cop comes over, and he goes, Do you know why I pulled you over? And the guy, Benoit goes, do you even know who I am? And the cop goes, yeah, I do, but you blew a stop sign. And Benoit goes, yeah, but I slowed down. The cop goes, yeah, but you're supposed to stop at the stop sign. He goes, yeah, but I slowed down. And the cop takes out his leather baton and starts smacking Benoit on the face with it repeatedly and goes, "Do you want me to stop or slow down?"
Wow.
That
All
is
right.
intense.
That is
Jeez.
that is some LAPD for you right there.
That is some classic police brutality right there. That's what that is. Jeez.
I don't know if I should
Give
just,
the man a ticket.
maybe I should report this. Let's take a quick break and come back
All right.
and take some Twitter questions.
Here's the scenario. You've been injured in a serious accident. The doctor says your recovery could take months, maybe even years, yet your insurance company is denying your claim every step of the way. If something like this happens to you, call me, Brian Goldfinger of Goldfinger Personal Injury Law. We have offices in Toronto, London, Peterborough, and now Kitchener-Waterloo. Visit goldfingerlaw.com and get us working for you.
Welcome to part 2 of the Rapcast with Will and Sham here. We're dissecting the 3-0 week, and now it's time to take some Twitter questions. Twitter has spoken because we asked Twitter to speak by asking Twitter a question, and now they responded with more questions, if you know how that works. Anyways, let's skip all that and dive into the questions. Let's start with you guys ready for this? I should ask you if you guys are ready for this, because we got some good questions today, guys.
I mean, I would be surprised if we got some good questions. But yes, I'm ready.
You're underestimating our 9,000 followers or whatever it is.
That's true.
All right, so let's start with at 1867_Ben. He goes, should Masai be looking at Jamal Murray in the draft? Now, before you answer that question, Will, we should first check on the Raptors, Denver, New York, the pick watch, right? So see what the...
I think we're 9th right now.
Ninth? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Let's just...
It doesn't help that Denver
10th.
gets to play some easy opponents like the Suns.
Yeah, it's 10th now.
That hurts. It's 10th?
Yeah, it's
Crap.
Because Denver, because the Knicks are 27-40 and Denver is 28-38. Denver's got some easy schedule. So yeah, it's the 10th pick right now. Jamal Murray might just be out of that range, but should Masai be looking at Jamal Murray in the draft, or is that? I guess the question comes from: do we have enough youth already on the team? That do we need to add another project on the team and kind of waste away a roster spot with that, or is it a question of like moving that pick and doing something more near term with it?
It's way too early to answer that question, I think.
For sure.
Going into the playoffs and seeing where this team is going to go, we have literally no idea how far this team's going to go in the playoffs. There's a very good chance we could be out in the first round. There's also a very good chance we could advance to the conference finals. So a lot of how we perform in the postseason is going to dictate Ujiri's sort of mindset going into the offseason. So, and obviously with DeMar's contract situation, there's so many sort of factors that have to a lot of dust has to settle. So I think thinking about it is sort of fun and interesting, but it still seems like so far away for me.
All right, Will, any disagreements there?
No. A lot of things could still happen. Should the Raptors get Jamal Murray if they could? Absolutely. Jamal Murray is very talented as a scorer. I don't want to say he's got a Steph Curry game, but he's a nice combo guard with some good size. He's got some defensive shortcomings, but the Canadian angle is just like a bonus. His profile as a player is very intriguing. And some people might say the Raptors don't need more guards. You don't know what's going to happen with DeRozan. You don't know with Kyle Lowry. You grab the best talent available, regardless of position, and there's a good chance the Raptors might be able to pick Jamal Murray, depending on how he does and how that affects his how he does in the NCAA tournament, and how that affects his draft stock. So he's talented, very talented.
Yeah, I'd say let's see how we do in the playoff, and then make that decision. There's no reason to talk about it right now. Like the pick is there, it might go up, it might go down, and it's just too premature to talk about it. So the next question comes from at MHStone32. He goes, who is the Raps' best lineup against the Cavs? Now, I don't know in what context he means that. I think he's looking at power forward maybe. I think you assume that if DeMar Carroll is healthy, he obviously plays the 3 with and guards LeBron. The 4 is probably an area of how do you want to handle like Kevin Love, Tristan Thompson maybe that's a bit of a question. Will, what do you think? Is that JV and Patterson for you, or how do you see that?
Well, my guess is that in the Cavaliers' closing time lineups, they're probably going to want to put Love at the 5 and then LeBron at the 4 and just play all-out offense, and then hope to get by. And if that's the case, I think the Raptors should go with something like, it depends. If JV is having a really good game defensively, then maybe JV, but that's going to need someone to always rotate and move their feet. So I think Bismack starts at 5. You got Patrick Patterson probably at 4, Carroll at 3, and then DeRozan and Lowry. And I think this is good because you could put DeRozan on someone like J.R. Smith and you can conserve his energy because J.R. is not going to do too much to him. Lowry can handle Kyrie. It's going to be a lot of work for Lowry, but whatever. You got Carroll, who can play, the 3 and try to, if they involve him pick and rolls, you can get Biyombo to switch on LeBron. You can get Carroll to switch on to Love. The 3 front court positions, they're all switchable for the Raptors, and I think that's probably the best one.
Yeah, before I go to Sham, I mean, my view here is, I think if Dwayne Casey has shown you one thing, it's that he will always favor the more defensive lineup because he has more faith in that. So I would expect to see Bismack Biyombo get a lot of run against the lineup that Will just mentioned with Love and Thompson or LeBron or whatever it is. I think Bismack Biyombo is going to play too many minutes to a lot of people's liking in the playoffs if he faces.
And he's slaughtered Cleveland this season. Yeah. He's been really good as a pick and roll guy.
So that's where I go. Sean?
Yeah, I think it depends on what Cleveland would do too. If Cleveland goes small, which I think they did at the end of the game when Dellavedova was in the game, or I can't remember if they went offense-defense on Lowry and put Dellavedova in, but if, you can't rule out the possibility of going small in the backcourt with Lowry and Joseph as well. Joseph to match up against Irving, Lowry against, Shumpert or Dellavedova if they go small. So I think that's an option as well, but I think Will was bang on. I'd probably just go with Lowry and DeRozan in the backcourt and kind of match up that way.
Yeah. I don't know. The only question, maybe you would want to find time for Corey Joseph in there somehow, just for defensive reasons. But again, it's just so situation dependent that it's hard to speculate. But at a general level, I think he'll go for the more defensive lineup and take his chances with Lowry and DeRozan on offense there. And I think Casey has some growing faith that Biyombo can actually be not productive, but at least somewhat functional or not a complete negative in a pick and roll situation on offense. I think he's developed that confidence in him a little bit, and it's even caused the site to take down the Bismack Biyombo blown bunny counter of late. Because we got a lot.
That got wildly unpopular. Every single time Biyombo had a good game, people would rush to that counter and be like, "Stop disrespecting this man." We're not disrespecting him. He just has trouble catching the ball sometimes.
To his credit,
though,
he's improved his ability around the rim a lot throughout as the season has progressed. And I think if he rolls hard to the cup, on a pick and roll, and you kind of just lob it up if the defense backs off, there's a pretty good chance he's going to dunk it. And I think he started to learn that, his best chance is going straight up for a dunk and not, being too cute or, trying to lay it up.
It's certainly good to know that he's finally found out the value of catching the ball.
That always helps.
Next question is from @Mr_Sticks. Sticks is with 2 X's here. A little creative there, eh? He goes, is the paranoia from Raps fans in the first round justified, or should everyone just calm down? Calm down. I think that's how you meant to say it. Should people just calm down? What do you think, Will? Should people just calm down?
I think people want to believe in this team, and I think that the team has given them a lot of reason to believe in them. But then you got 21 years of just pure suckage. And I can't really blame people if they want to still, be a bit panicky, stay on the safe side, because historically chances are good that the Raptors are going to somehow break the hearts of fans. And we know this. We know this pretty well, the 3 of us.
So the paranoia is justified, says Will.
No, in terms of how good they are, no. It shouldn't be justified, but it's understandable, for sure.
Yeah,
it's not the same as justified?
No.
Well, it's an irrational fear, I guess, is the best way to put it, because we deep down we know we have a good team, but at the same time we've been through this so many times, where we think this is the year we're going to get past the first round, and 21 years of mediocrity means we have a right to be somewhat scared, even if we were the number 1 seed. I think and it's kind of scary because Chicago could end up in that 7th spot, and obviously there's a ton of basketball left to be played. But if we were to play a team like Chicago in the first round, I think every Raptor fan has a right to be, sick to their stomach at the prospect of facing Chicago. So you never know. Let's see how things shape up.
Yeah, I'd say the paranoia is a bit justified. I think unless you actually win a playoff round and you actually go through that mental hurdle, I think the players will always feel it. I think they'll try a little harder. They'll be more tense. I think until you actually do it, it's always going to kind of be there. It's kind of like the Bills in the Super Bowl.
But do you think losing the last 2 years is going to help them or hurt them though?
I don't think probably hurt them? I mean, more doubts? I don't know. It motivates them more, but it also gives them a bit of a mental roadblock. I have no idea.
Yeah, like I think it's experience.
We got a lot of questions to go through, Sean. We have a lot here.
On to the next one, man. On to the next one.
Okay, so here's another one from @redrock_bball. He goes, "Why won't Casey play JV more?" What? He does play him.
If JV's playing above 30 minutes, it means he's getting the minutes he's due, especially depending on the matchup too, right? Like, and I think he's playing fourth quarter minutes, which is what most fans had a problem with last year. So I don't really see the problem here.
He goes, JV's defensive deficiencies are overblown, and his defense is greater than Biyombo's offense. I don't think anyone is arguing that. So, well, I guess the question is, Sean, do you think JV gets underutilized?
Well, there's a difference between him getting minutes and him getting touches, and I think right now he's getting minutes. If like you can't really expect him to play Lowry, DeRozan, 37 plus type minutes, but he's getting between 30 and 35 minutes a night, and he's playing fourth quarter minutes, but he's not always getting the ball in his hand, with plays run for him, especially down the stretch. So utilization I think could be better, but a lot of that is because of the over-reliance, so to speak, on Lowry and DeRozan, who basically shouldered, the entire scoring load on most nights. So it's like, he's underutilized, but we're winning, so I can't really complain about it.
Will, you want to add something here, or do you think Sean did an okay job?
No, I thought Sean did a great job. I just think with JV, he's just a matchup player right now. Even though he has improved at the margins of his game, Blake had a really good piece about that at Sportsnet recently. JV's improved in the margins. Yeah. But at the same time, he's still a matchup player, man. There are still matchups where he is not fit to play. Like, and those matchups,
and there are matchups where he's a great fit, like the last two games.
Exactly. And that's why him and Biyombo are really good, 1-2 combo, because they offer two completely different styles in terms of what they bring to the game on both ends of the court, and it's nice to have that as a combination, and you just got to trust Casey to manage that. And I don't think Casey distrusts Jonas anymore. I really doesn't seem like it. Without fail, Dwayne Casey brings Jonas off the into the game in the fourth quarters now. I think that was one of the biggest gripes before, and he's given him a lot of rope this year.
Yeah.
So I think he plays fine.
Yeah, I think so. That's the main thing. He plays the fourth quarters way more consistently than he was in years past. So that's the biggest thing for me. Even though the minutes are exactly the same, 26.2 this year, same as last year. Let's go to the next question. Is @GPNY Holt. He goes, how do the Raptors help Jonas become motivated to be acceptable on defense? He already is acceptable. I'm not gonna. Yeah. Why would I skip? Sorry, @JPNY Holt. Jonas's defense is just fine. He's not a below average defender. He's all right. Next is @JPapaZoglu99. He goes, can you explain Zerar's Scola cheesecake analogy from the Miami Quick Reaction? Okay, so this is where I went off on a bit of a tangent on Luis Scola. Basically, what I said is that Luis Scola is like a dessert. When you go to a restaurant and have a 4-course meal, you leave the dessert at the end. He's like a chocolate cake. You have a little bit of it, and you feel good about it. Now, if you get served the chocolate cake as part of your apps, as part of your main course, you're probably going to hate the chocolate cake. And that's what Casey's kind of doing with Scola. He's kind of shoving it down our throats way too early and often.
Yeah, like
that was my thing.
I got a better analogy for Luis Scola.
Go for it.
He's like edamame beans, all right, in that he's vastly overrated and completely useless.
And tastes like nothing. But
except like a slight hint of salt.
So Luis Scola tastes like nothing but salty. All right, good.
He's a sweaty man.
All right. Moving on. Okay, the next is @Consider the Owl. Nice name. I wonder what that means though. Consider the Owl. The rise.
He's like a conversation, he's a biologist. Considers owls all the time.
Okay.
All right, sorry. Just keep going.
The rise of in-season play calls for DeMar DeRozan's fourth quarter ISO and the potential perils of its overuse in the playoffs. So he's you can basically group him as a guy who's scared of the first round exit.
Yep.
He's worried, Sham, that the ISO thing won't work in the fourth quarter in the playoffs. And I say what we are calling an ISO isn't really an ISO because he is getting he's taking a lot of shots in the fourth quarter, but I wouldn't call them the same type of play where we clear out for him. It's not a 1-4 clear out where he just goes ISO. I think we do a lot to set his play up, which makes him have a lot more success.
Absolutely. And I think with DeRozan, I gotta kind of agree with him in the sense that in the playoffs, it's a totally different animal. You gotta be able to execute in a half court. Things tighten up, and teams can make adjustments in a 7-game series. So the team's got to do more than just rely on DeRozan's scoring, but at the same time, DeRozan's a lot better than he was early in the season when we were running ISO plays. I think he's developed a more consistent ability to shoot jumpers in the fourth quarter, gets to the line a lot better, and I think, like you said, it's not like it's just literally give the ball to DeRozan and everyone get out of the way. It's more sort of in the framework of the team offense.
All right, Will.
Yeah, look,
Okay.
this is
You
getting
don't have
overplayed.
to say anything, but you can go ahead.
This is getting overplayed. Like, you're seeing, I think Dwayne Casey doesn't get enough credit for what he's done this year. Obviously, there's a lot of history with Dwayne Casey. You know, he's not necessarily known as this super creative offensive coach, but like the Raptors have done really well after timeouts this year. He's got a great offense for the third year in a row, top 10, top 5 this year. And with respect to DeRozan, like, he's drawn up some beautiful plays for DeRozan off the curls on crucial times in the game. You saw it in the Hawks game where, you know, the Hawks were making a push. I think they were, you know, down 4, and then the Raptors called timeout. DeRozan comes off this series of screens. Blake wrote about it at Raptors Public. You know, I mean, I don't know. Obviously, they go to DeRozan a lot. He's been really productive, and it's not necessarily ISOs. It's like what Zohar, what you were talking about. It's they put him in situations where he's in an advantage.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just he creates the whole play. There's a whole setup before it, and then, you know, I don't know, man. People just gotta give Dwayne Casey a little bit more credit for that.
Hey, I got some stats for you.
Yeah.
According to Jason Williams' book,
Oh
he
my
thinks
God.
80% of winning is players, 10% is luck, and 10% is coaching. You guys agree with that?
Sure.
All right. Okay, moving on to the next question. I think we bit off too many here, man, but let's just go through them.
All right.
This is a bit of a depressing question. At Humanisticus goes, which one of our young guns will be shipped off in the summer? Why do they have to be shipped off?
I was just going to say the same thing. I don't know why. And again, this is another question that we will probably be able to shed some more meaningful light on in, you know, mid-June, given that we don't know where this team is going to end up. And I think you saw that 2 years ago, right? Like, we thought this team was going to get dismantled at the trade deadline and we're going to rebuild, and all of a sudden things turn the tide, and close to the end of the year we bring back nearly the entire team. So I think, like, how deep we go into the playoffs will dictate a lot, especially actually the bench, because most of the starters are locked up long term, and I think DeRozan will be locked up as well. So a lot to be determined. Let's talk about it in May or maybe June.
All right. Will, I'm going to skip you on this one because this one is self-explanatory. The next one comes from @ForeverRaptor. The 4 is the number 4. Aha. He goes, will the Raptors regret not signing Alex Toupane? Who's Alex Toupane?
Axel?
Oh, Axel.
Toupane.
Oh, right, the
yeah.
D-League guy. Yes,
Axel
Toupane. Axel Toupane. Great name.
People need to learn his name first, but yeah.
Axel Toupane. Will, I know you're a D-League enthusiast.
Yeah, in the sense that I chat with Blake about it. That's about it. I do not watch those games.
Some of the games though, with some pretty half-ass recaps. I gotta say that for sure, man. Those are pretty mailed in.
Oh, no, don't. There's no one's at fault for that. It's 905 games. Yeah, Toupane, man, he's really built himself into an NBA player over the last year. He came in really raw, and over the last 4 months, Jesse Mermis, the head coach down there, he's really worked with him to develop his game. You already had the NBA-sized body and athleticism, but now he's got a capable three-point shot and the ability to defend, 4 positions. So, look, it's one of those talented gambles, and you can't hold on to all of them. And I think the Raptors could have done something to retain him. They probably would have, but it's will they regret letting him go? I don't know. Maybe, but I feel like his upside is still a little bit limited. In terms of best case scenario, he turns out to be, I don't know, like a Trevor Ariza type.
That's not bad.
That's pretty good.
That's not bad. That's like best case scenario, though, right? Right now he's like on deep bench for the Nuggets. So
yeah, but then again, Anthony Bennett's best scenario was Draymond Green. So
his best scenario right now is he gets a contract next year in the league, guaranteed money. So
Oh, man.
You mean in the world, anywhere,
In China.
not in the league.
Anthony Bennett, we're rooting for you, young poutine.
we got man, I still got that cough from last week. All right, so we got one more question. We gotta be careful with this one. At Negmaron72, he goes, assessment on Terrence Ross's development and progress. That's a pretty deep question. Okay, could you describe this in 3 words or less, Sham? Assessment on Terrence Ross's development and progress. You can cheat a little. Go ahead.
I think Terrence Ross can be summed up in one word, and that's enigma. He has
still
been.
an enigma, though?
I think he is.
Go
I
ahead,
think.
explain
I
the
think he
position.
is. I think he's had a great stretch the past 2 months. Don't get me wrong. That still, to me, I'm not convinced that Terrence Ross is just going to disappear in the playoffs or disappear for a 7-game stretch. I think this Terrence Ross is fantastic, and this is something that we can, if we expect this every night, I have no problems with where his game is, and I think he's developed into, that reliable scoring threat off the bench that can hit threes, play good defense, and I think just be efficient. That's the key. And he, in the early part of the season, was 100% the opposite. So the fact that he's showing those signs is great. If he continues this, my biggest worry is the playoffs, where he's traditionally struggled. So hopefully, if he continues in the playoffs, then I think his development is pretty good, right?
Yeah, I've already spoken about Terrence Ross. I'm happy with what he's doing. So I think he's on the right trajectory. Will?
Amber Rose effect.
What happened there? Could you explain to me? Because I'm old.
No, he's just dating Amber Rose.
Are you
And I think
serious?
he's got things settled in his life. I think he's happy. He's confident. You could see that confidence on the court, man. Yeah. Also, he's just much better defensively than last year. I think that him coming off the bench makes it easy for him because he's got easier opponents to match up against. He's not covering for the guy DeRozan's not covering. It just helps. It honestly just helps, and he's playing with better defenders now anyway.
Yeah, he's playing his natural position too, right? Like he doesn't have to defend out of position. I think we saw that a lot last year, so it's nice to see him not have to guard multiple positions.
Yeah, and I remember coming into the season, Dwayne Casey kind of said something controversial when he was like, Terrence Ross will kind of reprise that Lou Williams role. And we're all like, what? No, they're completely different players. But now when you watch Terrence Ross, he kind of is that Lou Williams guy. Except his shots are coming within the flow of the offense. So he's not initiating for him to... Basically, at this point, if you pass the ball to Ross, that's a shot. He's going to take that shot. He's either going to be pulling up, or if the defense is really up on him, he steps in or he crosses them up and then takes that pull up. But basically, Terrence Ross is going to gun. But unlike Lou Williams, he doesn't have the ball to make the decision of whether or not to call his own number. So he's been a very effective, gunner.
You also don't see him doing some things he did last year. Remember last year he had a few plays. I remember one against the Lakers, which always stood out for me, was like where he kind of dribbled the ball for like 11 seconds, and then continued dribbling it, and then took like a fadeaway, which like just hit air, and like the whole arena was like, it was like this cringe moment. I don't know if you guys remember that, man. It was at the lowest moment last year for Terrence Ross. But to Will's point, all the shots are coming from within the offense, unlike Lou, who just kind of went rogue on every other possession. So, hey, I'm happy with Terrence Ross, man. On that note, I will give you one more anecdote before we take a break and come back to preview the rest of the schedule. This is from Charles Barkley's days in Philadelphia, where every morning, Will and Sham, are you guys listening to this, or am I boring you?
No, please.
Okay.
Everyone on the Raptors Weekly podcast, the audience wants to know about Jason Williams, the retired player.
Right. And so he was teammates with Charles Barkley in Philadelphia, and apparently every morning Charles used to stop by at McDonald's and pick up 2 giant pancakes and 2 sausages and eat them on the exercise bike while everybody else practiced. And nobody said anything. He just used to yell at players while pancakes just spit out of his mouth, and nobody said anything. So much so to the point where the Sixers actually built a special tray which would hold 2 McDonald's pancakes and 2 sausages attached to the treadmill so that Charles could enjoy them.
Ooh.
Yes.
That's deep stuff, man.
Right.
That is like the least surprising story ever.
Well, I mean, the fact that they built a special tray, I thought that was kind of...
That's true, yeah.
All right, let's take a quick break and come back with the final segment of the Rapcast. All right, welcome back to the final part of Raptors Weekly. Will and Sham here, and Jason Williams too.
In spirit.
In spirit. So let's look ahead to the schedule. It's been quite a long podcast. So there are 5 games next week, which is a bit much, I'd say. So we'll defer the preview of the Friday Boston game and the Sunday Orlando game to Blake and Will's Raptors Weekly Extra podcast, which airs on Friday. And we'll focus on the first 3, which is Chicago on Monday, and then Milwaukee on Tuesday, and then in Indiana on Thursday. So let's start with the Bulls. And let's start with you, Will. The Bulls are standing outside the playoff picture right now, and they just got crushed by Miami the night before we beat Miami. They got no Butler. They got no Rose, no Noah. Are we still going to lose to them?
Well, I think all the losses to the Bulls almost defies logic. So I guess yes, because it's just a law that the Raptors have to lose to the Bulls regardless. Yeah, the Bulls are dealing with injuries again. Surprise, surprise. Rose, he's banged up. Jimmy Butler's banged up. Joakim Noah's out for the season, and Pau Gasol recently hurt his knees. So I don't know, man. But who knows? Guys like Christian Felicio came off the bench last game and destroyed the Raptors. So I honestly have no logical things to say. Yes, the Raptors are better. They're at home. The Raptors have been great at home. But the Bulls are the Bulls.
All right, Sean, what do you think here?
Pretty much echo everything Will just said. This game is...
We should not be losing this.
On paper, we shouldn't be, but the Bulls have beat us for other reasons than... I mean, obviously, there's the one game where Butler went basically haywire and took the game over by himself. But
That's
other
still
than
nuts.
that...
He had 40 and a half.
40 and a half, exactly. So, in the other games, Butler and Rose and Noah were not the reasons we lost those games. We lost those games because of their bench. Tony Snell, Aaron Brooks, Doug McDermott, who went berserk on us in Chicago.
Career high 30.
Yeah, so those guys are... I'm more worried about those guys. So regardless of if Butler or Rose or Gasol even play, actually, I don't think any of them will, but even if they don't... I still think we're sort of the underdogs going into this, so which is hilarious.
You guys worried about Felicio and Doug McDermott.
I'm very worried about Felicio, all right? There's no book report on this guy. No one knows what he's going to do.
Yeah, he's their version of Bruno, and I think JV is going to have to attack him.
He's also Brazilian.
He's the Brazilian
right,
Kevin.
We got to pick a win here. We cannot say we'll lose to Chicago.
No, I'm saying the Raptors lose.
I'm saying the Raptors lose
serious.
too, man.
No, it's at home. This cannot happen.
I'm going to this game, so we better win this one.
All right.
And then it's the fear of the deer, the team that Will does not want to face, Milwaukee. How are the Bucks doing, buddy?
They're lethal. They're lethal.
They were your team, man. The Bucks. Remember the summertime in the preview podcast for the East? I picked them like dead last or 14th or something. Where are they right now? Let's check the standings and let's see how right Zarar was.
They are 12th.
Here we go. 12th. Okay, so they got
They've had injuries, man. They had Gravis Vasquez go down to an injury. How could you expect? Look, okay, the Bucks have played.
Greg Monroe's not fitting in defensively. Oh, okay, that's news.
Wow, that's shocking. That's a shocker right there.
Okay.
No.
We'll go for it. The Bucks.
Yeah. Okay. So their season has kind of gone haywire. A lot of injuries. You got OJ Mayo slipping on stairs and breaking his ankle.
At least
seriously, it's some biblical stuff is happening to the Bucks. But their 3-man core right now, with Giannis, Jabari Parker, and Chris Middleton, have all played really well since the All-Star break. Like Giannis is almost averaging a triple-double and stuff. It's kind of terrifying. He's doing like crazy freakish length stuff every game. So I don't know. I mean, it's going to be. I mean, on paper, the Raptors should destroy the Bucks, but second out of a back-to-back, traveling, obviously, I think the Raptors win. It's going to be closer than people anticipate.
All right, Sean, why don't you go ahead while I look for another anecdote here?
Yeah, I don't know, man. This is just one of those. This is just one of those blah games that we've been having against, Utah, Brooklyn, and so on. The Bucks are sort of like the Denver Nuggets of the East in that they're just there. No one really cares about them. Even in like
beat us twice.
Yeah, and I think we just have to get to a point now where we just have to sort of lock down and win these games that we're expected to win, so that we're sharp. We're sharp for the playoffs. That's pretty.
Wow, Sham, that is some Leo Routen's level of analysis.
Totally half-assed that one, man.
You got to outscore the opponent.
We just got to score more baskets.
If you block the shot, you got to keep it in bounds. Otherwise, it doesn't work.
Oh, Leo. Sick Leo.
Now, you went outside. Defense knows you can go outside. Now you got to go inside.
Oh, yep. That's some
You're
Leo right
killing
there.
it,
That's
man.
Leo
Last week
Rums.
it was Matt and Jack, and this week it's Leo.
We love those guys. Those guys are really nice to the podcast. But
Now, when you come into the game, like you don't want to be taking jumpers. Get an easy layup, get yourself warmed up, and then take the jumper. Indiana. Let's do
Leo.
Indiana.
Let's do Indiana.
Let's start with Will again. Indiana. Paul George, his leg has mended.
It's more than mended. It's fused back together.
Bionic leg.
Miracle. Yeah. I don't know. The Pacers are interesting. They sort of had some of the big men break out, like Miles Turner, even Jan Mahimi, who's like he's 29. He's having a breakout season. But I think if you can get the Pacers into a half-court game, if you don't turn over the ball, which is huge because the Pacers are really great at just converting those into points. The Pacers are almost a little bit like Boston in that sense. And if Paul George isn't just like going off, which shouldn't happen, the Raptors have enough guys to throw at Paul George. I like the way the Raptors match up against the Pacers actually a lot. So I'm saying this is a win.
Okay. That took a long way to say that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll say a win as well. This is one of those games where like the Pacers can score. They've got lethal scorers in George and Monte Ellis, and even guys like Jordan Hill have caused a lot of trouble for us in the past. So there's a lot of potential sort of problem areas. But I think what's going to be interesting for the Pacers is how Ty Lawson can, or if he does fit into that team going forward. That'll be interesting to see. But I think this is just one of those teams that it really just boils down to Paul George and Monte Ellis, and if either or can go, because George can go for 40 points or even 50. So I think if you stop Paul George and Monte Ellis, you've stopped most of the Indiana Pacers.
All right, I think that sums it all up. Gentlemen, thank you for joining on a much more than an hour we've gone through. Thank you to Will. Thank you to Sean. Thank you to Jason Williams for coming up with this 3 out of 5 publication. And if you want to know how the story for Jason Williams ended, he accidentally shot his limo driver and got served some time in prison for it. And then I just Googled his name, I don't know, like yesterday while reading the book. And about like last month he got arrested for another DUI. He hit a pole in upstate New York.
Maybe
Shouldn't have shot that driver.
Maybe he'll write a book about that, and we can feature that on
funny you
call.
mentioned that. He plans to write another book in which he's going to reveal that he was molested.
What?
I'm not joking. Okay, let's move on.
Zarar is getting paid per mention right now.
No, that's what it said. Okay, Google it up. It's all out there.
Commission on 1 cent per book is it's hard. It's hard to live off that.
Hey, Blake's salary's high.
No. Oh, Blake.
All right, let's do some quick plugs. Again,
Yes.
if you like the podcast, why would you
Support
not?
Blake.
Why would
and
you
me.
not? Check out the Raptors Weekly Extra podcast, which airs on Friday with Will and Blake, and they'll preview the 2 games that we didn't preview. So you got another reason to check that out. And also the Talking Raptors guys that come with their podcast every other week or so, around Wednesday or so. So check them out as well. And of course, if you have the time and the ability to support Raptors Republic, do check out patreon.com/Raptors Republic and help us out where you can. And finally, do rate the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, or any mobile app that you listen to. We're available on Acast, SoundCloud, and basically everywhere. Thank you for the rating so far, and keep rating us. Will, thanks a lot, buddy.
Thanks.
Sean, will you
Thanks
get
for having
back
me.
to House of Cards?
Absolutely, my friend.